parent teaching seeks to inform parents and guardians about the importance of the different stages of children's cognitive development so that they will be equipped to facilitate their children's learning. The facilitators are four experts in the field of psychology and child development. Their names are Jessica Collins, Shanta Griffiths, Shireen Robinson Clark, and yours truly, Sharika Campbell. Now viewers, Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development explains how a child constructs a mental model of the world. The word cognitive is associated with the mind. He has regarded cognitive development as a process which occurs during the child's biological maturation and interaction with the environment. He has debunked the initial view that children are lesser adults when he proved that children think differently from adults and older children think differently from younger children. He suggests that children move through different stages of mental development. These are the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. Our presenters will present on each of these stages respectively. So let's invite Jessica Collins as she presents on the first stage, the sensory motor stage. Make her welcome.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Campbell. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, so I am Jessica Collins. I am your first speaker. I am a child psychologist. I have been in the field for 15 years, so trust and believe me, parents, when I say I know exactly what it is you're going through at home. I know what it is like. I know what can help you and what won't. So just bring your chairs a little closer to your television and tune into what I have to say, because I want you to leave your rooms, whether it's your bedroom or your living room, with some information that can help you to better facilitate your children while they are at home with you. Now, as a guide, I'll be using Jean Piaget's theory. It has been a theory that I have been using for several years in several institutions across this country, and let me tell you, it has worked. It is a good theory, and if one understands it well, they are better able to facilitate their children. Now, before I even go into ways in which you can help them, strategies that you can use that can be employed to help them, I just want to summarize this theory for you, and I'm also going to speak about the first and earliest stage of his theory. Now, Jean Piaget was a child psychologist, and he developed the cognitive development theory that he speaks about that language acquisition is a mental and emotional process, and as we go through, and when I say we, myself along with my other colleagues that will be speaking about this theory, as we go through, you will see what he means or what he meant when he said that language acquisition is actually a mental and emotional process. Now, I'm going to look at the very first and earliest stage of the cognitive development theory. Now, the first stage of the cognitive development theory is the sensory motor stage. And that at that stage, it begins at 0. So we're talking about our toddlers. So I know parents who have enrolled their children in infant and preschools, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten. So for those who have those little ones at home with them, allow me to help you get a better understanding of their cognitive development. So the sensory motor stage it begins at 0, so that's from birth to 2 years, and it is a process of rapid cognitive growth. Now at this stage, babies begin to utilize innate abilities and skills. So the sucking, the touching, the listening. So when you see them practicing that behavior, parents, this is where they're utilizing those are the innate skills that they are utilizing. And it's all based on it is based specifically on what is going on in the environment. And this is also a trial and error period. At the sensory motor stage is where they go through a trial and error period using their senses. And this is done through the processes, assimilations and accommodations. Now, some of you might be saying, what is assimilation? What is accommodation? So assimilation is where the babies find their new understandings, new information to fit their schemas, right? And then accommodation now is where they restructure or modify what they already know. So they're modifying and restructuring what they already know so that the new information can fit better. All right? So remember, parents, assimilation now is where they're using new information. They modify the new information to fit their schemas. And accommodation is where they modify and restructure what they already know so that the new information can fit in better. Now, as I said, at this stage, they enter a process of rapid cognitive growth. Now, at the sensory motor stage, there are six in total, 6. There are 6 sub-stages. So yes, I'll be speaking to you about the 6 sub-stages of the sensory motor stage. Parents, don't worry. I will go through each and every one, providing brief explanation along with examples. So I'm just going to list those 6 sub-stages for you now. And they are: 1, simple reflexes; 2, primary circular reactions; 3, secondary circular reactions; 4, coordination of reactions; 5, tertiary circular reactions; and 6, early representational thoughts. So those are the 6 stages, sub-stages of the sensory motor stage, which is the first and earliest stage of Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory. All right? Okay, so as listed earlier, the first sub-stage of the sensory motor stage is simple reflexes. Now, simple reflexes takes place during the first month of the baby's life, right? And this is where the baby responds to external stimulations. And when we're talking about external stimulations, it means activities that you do, stuff that you do, to get your baby smiling, laughing, whatever it is. So if you notice as parents, sometimes you will play with the baby's cheek, and most time you will get a smile, a giggle, or you will find that the baby is just sucking. There's this sucking thing that they do whenever you sometimes play with their cheeks. So that is the innate response that they give to those external stimulations. Now, having gone through that process, a 1 to 4 month old baby now would then transition into the primary circular reactions, and that is when the baby repeats pleasurable actions centered on him or her own self. So say for example the baby likes to suck the thumb. You will find out that the baby continuously places the thumb in the mouth and sucks the thumb. So that's a pleasurable action, and you would see them repeat it over and over and over and over. Now your babies, having gone through the first 2 substages of the sensory motor stage, shows that your child is developing there's cognitive development taking place within that child, and having gone through the first 2 substages, they would have entered a 3rd substage, and this is known as the secondary circular reaction. So that's the 3rd substage of the sensory motor, the secondary circular reactions. And in this stage, this is where the baby repeats pleasurable actions involving objects and involving their bodies as well. So you might find them hitting on something continuously, and you might be asking yourself, what is it that they're doing? How do they find enjoyment out of this? But to them it is pleasurable. So you might see them hitting a phone, hitting a toy, hitting a gadget, and those are the behaviors you would see taking place during that 4 to 8 month period. And that stage is known as the secondary circular reactions. Now, having gone through that 3rd stage, they would have eventually entered the 4th stage of the sensory motor, the 4th substage of the sensory motor stage, which would be the coordinating secondary schemes. Now, this is where they start to display certain abilities. They start to display their ability to use the acquired knowledge to reach a desired goal. So, I don't know if you have seen cases where your baby wants something and they start to use a stick, they use a toy, this is just an example. Okay, so the 5th substage, which is tertiary circular reactions. At this stage, a baby during 12 to 18 months would enter a period of trial and error experimentation. And at this stage, they begin to do things to see what will happen. An example of this is a child actually throwing a ball down a staircase to see what will happen when it reaches the end of the staircase. Now, having gone through that stage, the child would then, or the baby would then enter the 6th and final substage of the sensory motor stage. Now, if your baby has gone through all 5 stages and is now at the 6th and final substage of the sensory motor stage, it would mean that the child or the baby would have been developing some cognitive skills. So at this 6th stage now, they are able to do greater things. Now, this 6th stage is known as the early representational thought. And this is where they begin to visualize visualize things that are no longer present physically. Now, an example of this could be the same ball that the child threw down the staircase. The child might want to use that same ball depending on the size. Well, at this stage, for this example, I would say a smaller ball, like a cricket ball, tennis ball, and they would probably want to throw that ball under the sofa. Now, when the ball is under the sofa, they no longer see it, but they begin to visualize the object that is no longer physically present. So they know through the stages that they have went through, would have known by this that the ball is on the other side of the sofa. So that's the sixth and final substage of the sensory motor stage. And once your child has gone through and mastered all 6 stages, it would mean that the child's cognitive skills would have been developed. I know those parents whose children would have gone through all 6 sub-stages. I know they're probably celebrating. I know they're happy. But sorry to burst your bubble. Sorry to burst those bubbles. Because the main development of the sensory motor stage is object permanence. Now, what is object permanence? Object permanence is the baby or the child being able to acknowledge or realize that even if a object is hidden or covered, it still exists. Once your baby is able to acknowledge that or to realize that or knows that, then it is time for that baby to make that transition from a smooth transition from the sensory motor stage to the pre-operational stage. Now, an example of a child who has developed object permanence would be, for example, a child, let's use the same ball. So a child sees the ball, you show the child this ball, a ball, right? And the ball, the child covers his or her eyes. And when the child opens his or her eyes, they no longer see the ball. Now, a child who has developed object permanence would know that it still exists, it's covered up, and that child would just take the covering off it or reach for it, knowing that it is hidden. But a child who has not developed object permanence would be confused and lost. Now, once the child is confused or lost, it would mean that the child would not have developed object permanence, and as such, he or she would probably not be ready to transition into the pre-operational stage. So yes, babies go through these 6 sub-stages of the sensory motor stages before they transition into the pre-operational stages. And the main development, though there are 6 sub-stages that you go through, the main development of the sensory motor stage is object permanence. And parents, I know you have been anticipating the moment. I know you are waiting on me to share some of the tips and techniques that can be used to facilitate our babies when learning. Now, for those who are pregnant, my first advice would be to talk to the child while in the womb. It helps them. Another advice for those with their young babies at this moment is to speak the language, model the language for the child. That way they hear the language in use, and not only that, but they are also able to identify speech sounds, which is very good. And another thing that you can do is to play peekaboo with the child. It helps them to understand object permanence, and as I said before, that is the main development of the sensory motor stage. So those are some advice and tips and techniques that I can give to you out there as parents. And of course, teachers, it is very important for us to create rich, stimulating environment for them, work on the color schemes, work on the pictures, work on the objects, work on the toys. It helps to develop their cognitive skills, especially our babies or toddlers. They are important, and yes, they are able to learn at that stage. And I just want to take this time to say that even if it is a toy that squeaks, a duck, having squeezing that duck allows a child to acknowledge or to realize or to understand cause and effect relationships. So we see how important these toys are, how important the colors are, how important are the hands-on activity, the touching of stuff. So they actually discover things at that age. It was my pleasure to speak to you via this program this afternoon, and I hope that I have helped those parents out there who are experiencing difficulties in facilitating their children while at home. Our toddlers are important, our babies are important. Don't ever forget that. And the simplest thing they do, just remember that they are in a stage, they are currently at a stage, and as such, for them to grow, they have to enter and exit each stage. Again, it was my pleasure this afternoon. I will now hand over to my colleague, Shanta Griffiths, who will be speaking to you about the pre-operational stage. Do enjoy, keep safe, and have a blessed afternoon.
Good day, everyone. My name is Shanta Griffiths, and today I will be looking at the pre-operational stage or period of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. The pre-operational stage of Piaget's theory is usually regarded as the second stage of cognitive development, and this usually begins at age 2 and usually lasts approximately until age 7. So Piaget believed that at this stage of a child's life, they're thinking it's actually pre-operations, which means that a child is unable to actually use logics or to combine or separate ideas. He also believed that at this stage, a child cannot see from other people's point of view. So they're unable to take on the point of view of other people, and this is actually regarded as egocentrism, but we'll actually go more into that while we're going through the features of the pre-operational stage. So there are actually 8 key features of the pre-operational stage, and these include egocentrism, as I said earlier, centration, symbolism, play, pretend play, animism, artificialism, and irreversibility. So all of these features usually work together in the language acquisition development of a child. So we're going to actually start off with egocentrism. So egocentrism usually refers to the inability to differentiate between self and others. All right? Also, it could be regarded as the inability to accurately assume or understand the perspective or point of view of another person. According to Piaget, the egocentric child assumes that other people sees, hear, feel, and think exactly the same way that they do. So an example of this would be like a parent being in the kitchen, probably making dinner, or probably in the laundry room doing laundry, and a child would walk up to the parent and be like, "Want juice now?" It's not a case where the child is rude or the child is selfish. It's just a case where they want the juice now and they're asking for the juice now, and you should get the juice now because they asked for it. It's not that they believe that they're doing something wrong. They're not seeing it from the mother's point of view or the father's point of view that mommy or daddy is busy right now doing the laundry or making dinner and will need a little time to get this done before getting the juice. Not seeing it from mommy's point of view. Mommy normally gives the juice, and I want juice now, so I'm going to ask mommy for the juice. I don't realize that mommy is busy. All right, so another example could be, all right, let's say you gave your child a doll. You gave your daughter a doll, and your daughter at 3 years old really, really loves that doll, and that doll is the only thing that can calm her down. So you are feeling down, and your child may see that you're feeling down, and the child would take that doll to you, right? And expect that you are supposed to be happy when you get that doll because it makes her happy, so it should make you happy as well. It's not a case where she's selfish again. It's just a case where, okay, the doll made me happy, so it will definitely make mommy happy as well. Not realizing that, okay, mommy's an adult, this probably won't work to make mommy happy. It's just a case where it made me happy, so it will definitely work for mommy. It's just a case where they're not seeing anything from your point of view. They're just seeing it from their point of view. How they believe it is, they expect that you are supposed to believe the same. All right? So the second feature that we will be looking at is centration. Now, centration is defined as the tendency of a child to focus on only one aspect of a situation at a time. During this stage, children have difficulties thinking about more than one aspect of any situation at the same time. So an example of this would be, right, so an example of centration would be, all right, you having two cups placed in front of a child. So you have a medium cup and you'd have like a really tall cup. All right, so you're going to throw the same amount of water into both cups. And then you're going to ask the child to choose which one of the cups has the most water. At that moment, the child will actually go ahead to point out the taller cup, because at that moment they're focusing on the height of the cup in order to determine which cup has the most water in it. So at this stage, they cannot manipulate both length and volume at the same time, or height and volume at the same time. All right? So we can go ahead and move on to symbolism. Now, symbolism usually takes place between ages 2 and 3, right? So at this stage, the child will begin to realize that certain words and objects are symbolic for something else. All right, so for example, a child will get all excited when they say mommy, because the first time that they said mommy to you, you melted and you were like, oh my God, she said mommy, she said mommy. So from then on, the child, each time when the child say mommy, she'd automatically get excited when she say mommy, because she knows the reaction that is going to come afterwards, right? Another example for this would be like when a child does something good, and you probably applaud them and you clap, and the child see that, okay, this made mommy happy, so I'm gonna keep doing it. So another time the child is going to do it again, and even before you start clapping, the child would start clapping when the child does it, because that was the reaction they got before. So they know that, okay, once I do this, it's symbolic to something. It's gonna make mommy happy. If I say this, it's gonna make mommy happy. If I do this, it's gonna make mommy happy. So at this stage, they know exactly that certain things are symbolic to, um, are actually symbolic or mean something to you as the parent. All right, so let's move on to play. So play is actually the stage, is actually a feature of the pre-operational stage where you'd see a child playing alongside another child, but not directly with the other child. All right, at this stage, even though they may know how to use their speech to express what they see, what they feel, and what they need, they're not actually talking to another child or including another child in playing with them. So they're not yet parallel playing. They don't realize that the speech, that talking can be used as a tool to becoming friends with another child or to become social per se. All right, so rather than playing with another child, you'd have them playing alongside the child. It's after they have mastered the play, the key feature of play, that's when we'd see a child transitioning into the other key feature of pretend play. So pretend play, this is where you gradually see a child starting to include other people while they're playing. This is where you'd see them using things around the house to express the ideas or to actually bring forth the ideas in their head. So they're using their imagination, using things around them to express the ideas or to actually solidify what they see in their usual life. So you'd start seeing like your child using a broom as a bike, and you'd see them using like your chair as a bus. And not only that, you'd see them including other children in this pretend play to be like passengers or maybe conductors or stuff like that at this stage. So at this stage, you're using their imagination and they're using it to solidify the concept that they are developing cognitively, right? So in pretend play, a young child advance on their cognition about people, objects, and actions.
Thank you, Miss Griffiths. Hello, everyone. I'm Shireen Robinson, and I'll give you a synopsis of the third stage of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. At this stage, children should understand the concepts of conservation, categorization, reversibility, and egocentrism. They should also be able to think logically. In the classroom, these students need to be engaged as they are curious, so they should be involved in discovery learning. So the concrete operational stage is the third stage of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Students are between the ages of 7 to 11 years, and at this point in time, they are moving from the pre-operational stage onto the formal operational stage. So they should be thinking internally, thinking more logically. I'll first explain conservation. Conservation is where an object changes in shape or appearance but is still the same. So the child should understand that concept. For example, if I have a short, fat glass and a tall, thin glass, when I pour the contents from the short glass into the tall glass, students should understand that it's the same and the content in the tall glass is not more. So they should understand conservation. The next stage that they should understand is logics. They use inductive reasoning at this point in time. So they go from a specific experience to a general principle. For example, a child is around a cat, and every time this child is around a cat, they have running nose, watery eyes, and they're sneezing. The child should be able to think and say, every time I'm around this cat, this is what happens. As a result, I need to stay away from the cat. But they have a problem with deductive reasoning, because if you should say stay away from the cat, they will wonder why they need to stay away from the cat. Another thing that students should be able to understand is reversibility, that actions and numbers can change back into its normal form, original form. So for example, if you have a blown up ball and it deflates, air can be put back into that balloon for it to get back to its normal state. So students should be able to understand reversibility. Also, they should be able to understand categorization. So at this stage, or on this age, students should be able to categorize, put things in categories. So for example, they learn about quadrilaterals, and if I have different sizes or different four-figure shapes, students should be able to put all of the take the four-sided shapes out of the six-sided shapes to put in quadrilateral, because quadrilaterals are four-sided shapes. So they should be able to categorize. Another stage is egocentrism. Students should decrease in egocentrism at this time. They think less of themselves, they think more about others, they see things from other person's perspective. So they might not be able to tell exactly how the person is feeling, but they understand how the person may be feeling. And language is developed at this stage based on their schemata. So as they go from stage to stage, they learn and they have experiences from their environment. So what they have learned is stored in their schemata, and they learn from this through assimilation and accommodation. Now, the implications in the classroom, in the primary classroom, students do not process things like adults. They have to learn from one stage and develop and go into another stage. So they construct their own understanding of the world through their interaction, right? So concepts must be understood to acquire language for the expressed concept. So for example, in introducing the word conservation, you have to show them the word conservation. Explain to them what conservation is. Let them discover, like, do the experiment with conservation. From their understanding, they will store that in their schemata and use those words in sentencing, in expressing themselves. So in expressing themselves, they build on words, and words, they know more words. So language is reflected as they grow and as they develop, and so is their logical reasoning. So they are able to explain, they develop, they're able to explain new experiences. From new experiences, there are new words. As a result, vocabulary increases. So they learn through discovery, right? They engage, the learning is more meaningful for them, so they will understand. And when they're in a social when they're learning collaboratively, they are able to learn from their peers. So if a student in their group speaks Spanish, they will be able to know Spanish words, right? So their vocabulary would also increase. If they are mature students other mature students around them, like for example using multiple meaning words or words that have synonyms such as leave. They will learn the word vacate. So as they experience with others, they build, their vocabulary builds and become greater. They discover also by handling things with hands-on activity. So for example, with the word verbs, in the primary school curriculum, they have, we plan lessons based on the 5 E's. In the 5 E's, the first E of that 5 E is to explore. So they'll be given a set of 5 pictures, and for example, jump, laugh. Students will think and say, oh, these are things that I can do. So as a result, they think and learn the word verbs. So teachers at this stage should plan for each student in the classroom. Every child doesn't understand and work at the same stage, right? So the teacher has to plan using differentiated planning. So she plans for the auditory learner, the kinetic learner, the 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 kin the visual learner, right? Or a mixture. She use props. She use visual aids, right? Audio tapes, things like that, so that children can learn and develop. So that she can plan for each child in the classroom. Excuse me, sorry. The word is kinesthetic. So, in continuing, the children also learn from their mistakes, right? So, children should be given projects, given experiments, so that they can experiment with these things. So, in doing this, vocabulary will be built, as they will be using words why, what for, what if. So these, in expressing themselves in this way, it also builds on their vocabulary. So parents can help out at home, seeing that it is we are going through a pandemic crisis at the moment with the COVID-19. So parents can have the children in the homes, helping them with their words and their vocabulary by involving them in the kitchen, because Piaget's theory may come out, such as conservation. They are able to measure. When they measure, that's the stage of conservation. When they separate the dry ingredients from the wet ingredients, that is categorized in. So I thank you for listening as I explain the third stage of Piaget's cognitive development.
Hello viewers, I am Sharika Campbell, and in this segment of the program, Parent Teaching, aired by the Ministry of Education to help parents to assist with homeschooling their children so that they can help their children to learn when they, the parent, understand how children learn. I will be presenting and featuring the fourth and final stage of Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. This stage is called the formal operational stage of cognitive development. It begins at age 12 and lasts into adulthood. Now, it is during this time that the child develops the ability to think about abstract concepts and logically test hypotheses. So, parents of preteens, you'll find that your child is more vocal and more interested in things that is happening around them. They will pay attention to the news and wanting to know about justice and freedom. These abstract ideas start to think about, make their own hypotheses and theorize about what the rightness and wrongness of things. So you may say this bit enough, and probably getting involved in adult affairs. But I'm here to assure you that the child is now at that stage when they are now interested in this aspect of life. No longer do they just examine facts, but they are now looking and examining the information that has been going on around them. They are now making sense of the information. One, primarily that because their language is also developing, and so they now have a more sophisticated, mature language to which they can express themselves and at the same time appreciate information that is around them. So you will find that the materials that are being sent home to you are geared towards developing these abilities that your children have. So don't shun them, don't shy away. In fact, I encourage you to help them to develop problem solving skills, which is crucial at this age. They develop deductive logic, which is basically an increase in the deductive reasoning, where they will look at the general principle and then move forward to specific information. Now, children become capable of seeing multiple solutions to problems. That means that they are thinking about how to solve problems in a multiplicity of ways. Now, children, when normally children will just see one aspect of a situation, but at this stage, at the formal operational stage, they start to think outside of the box. They start to look at the worldview and look at a generalized knowledge, and they think more scientifically about the world around them. They are very much interested, and so you'll find them reading more advanced materials. As a result, you'll find that the assignments that they're getting, their curriculum, the NSC curriculum, it encourages their creative abilities. It encourages their creative abilities, and so they will give them assignments that ask them to create things, work collaboratively with others, share ideas. Also, they are also at the stage where they will also make predictions. And in making predictions, it will build their ability to infer, to use what they know and combine that with information that they are reading and with the materials that they are being exposed to make predictions as to what certain outcomes may be. So previously as a child, children did not think about those things. The younger children don't think like that. But as they get older, at the formal operational stage, the child becomes very involved in their learning. They are very engaged in what they're learning. And so much so to the point where their metacognitive skills are being honed, in that they think about their learning, they think about their thinking, they assess why they think the way they do. If they're reading any material in particular, and they find that they don't understand, they will go and assess their learning. They will find ways to think the way they do. If they're reading any material in particular, and they find that they don't understand, they will go and assess their learning. They will find ways to assist them to learn. And so the teachers are aware of these principles, and that this is what they've been using for decades, using the principles of Jean Piaget to help students to learn. And so parents, we want to equip you with this ability so that you do not feel as if you are incapable. We want you to know that this here is a tool that educators have used to help students to develop their abstract thought, which is their ability to think about abstract concepts, to note that the ability to think about abstract concepts emerges during the formal operational stage. This is critical because instead of relying solely on previous experiences, children begin to consider possible outcomes and consequences of actions. This therefore means that you'll see that your child will take on certain responsibilities, and that is why you'll find that you are not very patient with them at that age. If you find them doing certain things that they ought not to be doing, you normally would say you should have known better, because yes, their behavior, because they're at that developmental stage, so indicated to you that the child is aware of the possible outcomes and the consequences to their actions. They should reason things out before making a decision. Also, you'll find that another skill that that is evident in the child is that during the formal operational stage, the ability to systematically solve a problem in a logical and methodical way also emerges. So that is why you'll find that their teachers will instruct them in such a way that they will give them assignments where they have to work with students to solve the problem. The activities gear them, like for example, even a simple puzzle will ask them to use their think critically, analyze, assess various situations in order to come up with possible solutions. And they will not just rush through and even just use trial and error, but they will think about it, they will work, they will try, they will hypothesize, and they will come up with a suitable solution that they know can work, having thinking about all the possible prospects. And that is why they will view things generally, and they will also think outside of the box. It's like all their thinking comes together at that age. The abstract thinking, the problem solving, the making of predictions, all of those things will come together, because you'll find that as they hypothetically deduce meaning from text and whatever it is that they're reading, the teens or preteens, as some would refer to them, they become capable of thinking about thinking about what if types of situation. It is important that at this age children, speculate about incidents and occurrences around them. In that, we can recall as adults when we were younger, we used to have this little thing where we jeer each other and say, suppose your nose was a doorpost, where would you put inches? This was because we found that children at that age, we were very curious and we wanted to know, yes, what if? The what if questions expands the mind, it expands the thought, and it opens up the possibility of seeing multiple solutions or possible outcomes to the different situations. Now, how do we help our children to frame their world and frame their language? Well, teachers normally will encourage students to read. They will provide them at school materials to read. And seeing that they're home and they're being homeschooled, at this age, they will be in grade 5, grade 6, grade parents for the most part. You know, you have to ensure that they have the resources available to them to help them to continue to learn. So you have to make sure that they have the text, you have to make sure that they have internet accessibility, that they can access the internet, so that they can do further research. Yes, of course, under your supervision, but when you expand the students learning and their ability to read, you'll find that you, of course, you're going to expand their vocabulary and their comprehension. And even as I was saying before, that making predictions is what was another crucial factor in this child's development at the formal operational stage. You find that when they learn to use what they know, they can appreciate the information that they encounter, they can appreciate what they hear around them, and as a result develop an interest in reading, an interest in learning, you know, and then become a lifelong learner, because it's like you are basically empowering them, equipping them with the skill to acquire language. Now, you have to, I know it may feel like a daunting task for some of you, you know, as you work with your child or children. But let me encourage you that it is a time in which you can further build a relationship with your child. And so, parents, I encourage you to talk with your children, listen to them, you know, build, it will foster trust, and you will get to know your child better, and they will also be learning about their world, understanding what is happening around them, and knowing that their brains are equipped to help them to learn further at an advanced stage. So now let me now just recap and just highlight the main aspect of the formal operational stage. You'll understand that the child has abstract thinking, they reason deductively, they think creatively, and as I said, the teacher will provide creative activities, encourage your child to do them at home. Continue to support them and listen to them, expose them, and continue to guide them as they explore moral, ethical, political, and even religious issues, because these are the things that they are now going to be having interest in. The materials provided will address these issues as they learn in a constructed fashion, and they're guided within a particular framework. So parents, all the best to you as you continue to support your children, no matter what age and stage they are at. Thank you for being with us on the program Parent Teaching, and we thank you that you will continue to support your child, support the school, and you know, continue to help to build a society. Remember to remain safe in this time, and remember to observe proper hygiene. We thank you for staying with us. Walk wood.